Well, guys, welcome back to the podcast. It's been a long while, but things have been crazy, been very busy. Um, but who cares about that? So we are joined again today by Tyler Patner. And Tyler, it's good to have you back on, brother.
It's good to be back on, Tay. I'm glad you're resuming scheduled programming, unscheduled programming, whatever. I'm glad you're back at it.
Yeah, me too. And I needed to just get some on the books. Literally, I was just like throwing my children around upstairs moments before I came down here with some iced coffee.
Nice.
So yeah, we're just getting after it, dude. So if you hear any crazy background noises, that's probably children just destroying each other upstairs.
That's
so
understood.
But dude, okay. So man, last time we talked, I think we were talking about the underlever PCP bullpup.
Oh yeah. Yeah, the Beeman underlever PCP. Sure.
So whatever happened with that?
Nothing. I had one. So I've said this a few times, but like typically my policy when it comes to guns we're reviewing, or going to review or want to review is if it bites the dust once, I will give it another chance. If it bites the dust twice, I'm not touching it. I'm sure a lot of people would love to hear or see a video that it bit the dust twice, right? But that's not good for anybody, in my opinion. I know there are a lot of people that want to see that stuff, but not something you'll see out of Pyramid Air. But the first one it started out shooting okay, and then it just fell apart. And I don't know why. I never really investigated further because after I put it over the chronograph, it got like a whopping like magazine and a half worth of decent shot count before it just like falls off a cliff. So you'd have to do some tuning to it. A lot of interesting features, but actually, so we had that first one, it kind of fell apart, and then we sold out of them. So I couldn't get another one for like months, and by then it was already whatever, it was already out there kind of living on its own. So I just said, nah, moved on.
Well, fair enough. Well, anyway, I was just trying to think. That was the last thing we had talked about. One of the last episodes I think I'd recorded.
Or would that have been like early 21, somewhere in
there? Yeah, or right around roughly a year ago. I haven't looked exactly to see how long it's been since I've done an episode, but yeah. Either way, dude. So what's new? I saw some. Was it a stag that you had hunted with an air gun?
Oh yeah. So like last season, got an opportunity through Umarex. They called up and said, hey, we've got a hunt plan with Tim Wells, the Slock Master himself, out at his family's property and some of his property in Illinois to do some different game stuff. That kind of highlight being a red deer cull hunt, I guess, going after hinds, which are female red deer. By the way, none of that I knew. If you go watch the video Tim did, they just told me like, you just call them a red stag. And I'm like, okay, so like red stag refers to the males, obviously. I didn't know the appropriate terminology was a red deer hind for female red deer. So I think I just said like a red stag doe or so, just like the completely wrong thing. Look like an idiot. But what are you gonna do? Nobody corrects you either when there's a camera on you, because they probably are laughing behind it. So, but yeah, had a great opportunity to. We ended up JB Umarex's marketing manager and Brad Webb, their like national sales manager. We're both down, and they both got red deer with hammers, and I use their new air shotgun, which is called the Primal 20, which actually isn't quite out yet, but hopefully will be coming soon. So it's a 20 gauge air shotgun shooting like a 400-ish grain slug. Basically, it's a kind of a weird slug with a plastic. It's almost like a shuttlecock, like for badminton looking thing. But yeah, I just like 30 yards broadside, double lunged, probably damn near 400 pound red deer hind and dropped her,
Jeez.
within 40 yards. So it was an awesome experience, and got to sit and talk shop with Tim Wells, which was super cool because that guy's hunted everything with everything, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Got to do some squirrel hunting out there as well. Got to try out at the time some of the new Umarex arrow guns. So like what we now know as the Air Saber Elite X2, so the double barrel Air Saber, and then the PCP version of the Air Javelin, so the Air Javelin Pro, which has now since come out. I think we're gonna have a review of that here soon, because I'm in love with that thing. It's like a 3.5-4 pound regulated arrow slinger that is probably at close distances good enough for whitetail. So I'm eager to maybe get an opportunity to use that out in the field. But yeah, the red deer hunt was awesome, man. It was a kind of a wild experience, something I never would have gotten to do on my own, for sure.
Well, that's awesome. I actually have within reach the Slockmaster big bore blowgun.
Nice.
That I've taken many squirrels with, and there's a raccoon that's been getting into some trouble in my backyard, so I'm contemplating setting up one of these nights. But it's hard because raccoons will come at like 7 p.m. or like 9 p.m. or like 1 a.m. and you just never know. So, but anyway, yeah, dude, that's crazy. And I've heard a lot of good things about the Javelin, the little like regulated version, and it looks sweet. I was really hoping, because CO2 has its place, but dude, if you can just make everything a PCP, then you're making the world a better place. So
for sure, yeah.
But yeah, I've been looking at that and I'm like, dude, this would be sick. So, I guess something that a lot of people don't know, besides the fact that I think we're both wearing the same shirt, like father, like son.
There you go.
So speaking of whitetail and hunting and all that fun stuff. So I told you this, I texted you a while ago, but we are planning on moving to Texas in the next few months. And that is whitetail haven, especially where we're going. Like, we're literally where my brothers live right now. They're just hand feeding deer every single day. There's like 17 whitetail on their property. There's like a band of bucks that come through, a few nice ones, but it's like, it would just be like shooting fish in a barrel. So I probably won't do that, but there's lots of whitetail where I'm going. So
awesome.
Is there anything you could tell us about the what's the 20 gauge called again?
The Primal 20.
Okay. Primal 20. Okay.
Yeah. So it's actually a very interesting gun. So it has if I'm remembering correctly, because again, this was like a year ago and I haven't seen one since. So it's a 4,000 PSI fill pressure PCP air shotgun. It has a smooth bore, but a rifled choke. So my understanding at the time was that you're going to be able to replace those chokes. The coolest feature to me of that gun is it's actually a repeater, kind of. So it has a shuttle style magazine that you physically manipulate to push it over from one shot to the next, but you can remove it, load it with 2 rounds, stick it into the gun. It fires out of the mag. And then, you're able to quickly change it over to that next round if you need it. So you have a follow-up on hand. I think the bolt, if I remember correctly, was ambidextrous on it. It was a prototype, so don't quote me on this, but not regulated, but puts out about, I want to say it was like 400 foot-pounds, if memory serves, somewhere in that ballpark. So it's not the most powerful thing. Obviously, Umarex has the hammer, which is like 700 foot-pounds. On a monster, but 400 foot-pounds, especially with what amounts to a just under 62 caliber, like that, you're putting a big hole in something. And actually, on that red deer, it went all the way through both lungs, rib cage, everything, and actually lodged in the hang on, my screen just timed out, dang it.
That's all right, I still see you.
My bad. But actually lodged in the layer between the hide and that first layer of skin. So it went all the way through that thing. It was really impressive. Dang. And actually the slug that's used didn't really deform at all, which was kind of neat. Also, like it looked like we could have shot it again, not that we would have, but
Right.
yeah, pretty neat, like very impressive, louder than heck. That'll be a interesting thing. But at the time they didn't have shot shells developed for it to actually be used as a shotgun. So I don't know where they're at with that. They may be holding off actually putting the guns out there until that exists.
Mhm.
But knowing that you could replace the choke, and do some other things with the guns, pretty interesting. Air shotguns aren't super popular, but it'll be a nice entry into the market, I think. And if I remember right, I mean, it's on our website. It's probably $700 or $800, something like that.
That's not bad. I really feel like the more hunting, like big bore options or hunting options, big game hunting options that we can come up with in kind of that price range,
Yeah.
I think really opens the door. Because if you got to drop, $1,000 or 1,500 or 2,000 on a big bore hunting rig, then you're just limiting the number of people that would be willing to even spend the money if they had it. So
Yeah.
I feel like that price point is a really nice one. So you've obviously done a fair bit of airgun hunting and big game stuff. So what would be, how do you kind of compare the two of conventional like bow hunting
Okay.
and archery to kind of airgun hunting? Like, because to me it seems that if archery is the most difficult, meaning you have to get the closest, it's the slowest moving projectile, requires a lot of precision, and then a firearm where you could shoot an elk from 500 yards away.
Sure.
It seems to me like air guns would be obviously in between that, but closer towards the bow hunting side of things.
Yes, that's usually the analogy I use. I always treat airgun hunting, big bore airgun hunting anyway, more like bow hunting. Like I want to be as close as possible because I know I'm not developing hydrostatic shock. And while I have in a lot of cases, like if you're out there with a Texan or a hammer or something like that, like you got a ton of power behind it. But when you compare that to a firearm, not a ton of power, right? So like by comparison to a bow or something like that, sure, it's a lot more powerful, but you don't have the same expansion. You don't have cutting like with a broadhead, like an arrow. So yeah, there's definitely, I would prefer to always be closer. That's just my thing. I want to know that I'm going to be able to not only be accurate at whatever distance I'm shooting, but also ethical from an energy transfer perspective at the distance I want to get it done at. So, there's a lot of in between, I think. Like you could take like a Seneca Dragonclaw, for example, like a 230 foot-pound gun, and run that for whitetail pretty successfully. You got a 50 caliber hole. As long as you're sub 40, 50 yards or so, like you should be able to be very successful with that. But I would much rather have a 700 or 800 foot-pound Texan doing that same thing, right? Like just more power is going to cause more internal damage, hopefully. And obviously you have, depending on the caliber of your Texan or hammer or whatever, you've got a lot of bullet options out there and some slugs that actually expand pretty decently if you're looking at like Nielsen's and things like that. So, you've got a lot of possibilities there. And like one of my favorite things though is shooting arrows out of air guns. Like that's one of the reasons I like the Dragonclaw for big game hunting is because where it's legal, that thing slings a 400 plus grain bolt with a broadhead on it at like over 500 feet a second. There's nothing that stops that. So that's to me, like that kind of blends those worlds perfectly. And I certainly wouldn't take a shot with an arrow firing airgun personally, probably over 50 yards. It can be done. It wouldn't be my go-to. Too much can happen in the flight of an arrow at that kind of distance.
And you were mentioning the noise too. So like one thing, when I hunted that hog in Texas a couple years ago with the Air Saber, it was a great gun, but it's so loud. And one of the things I noticed, and I was actually talking to my buddy Chris, who will be on here in a little bit, he was saying that he's worried that if he shoots it past a certain distance, the sound will cause the deer to jump the shot. And
sure.
So what are your thoughts on that? Have you experienced anything like that?
I've not experienced it, but most of the stuff I've done has been closer, like 30 yards, which is quite frankly where I'd want to be anyway. I could see it happening, especially with a deer. Like they're they have that really keen hearing, and they have that ability to kind of duck or pop up a little bit, which can throw your shot off. Yeah, it's certainly an issue. And that's the case with most big bores, honestly, because you're talking about, even with, your more powerful slug firing guns, subsonic flight. So the further you go, there's more potential for the report of that gun to reach the animal, maybe at the same time or before the projectile itself does. So it's something that you should be maybe not concerned about, but definitely considering when you're out in the field with a big bore. Because they're not quiet, that's for sure. I mean, even your suppressed guns, like your Hammer has a shroud on it. Your Texans, you can get like the SS or the LSS. Most of these you could put like a Donnie on them as well, which make them walking sticks, but that's a whole other thing.
Right.
But yeah, you can only mitigate that much air so much. So,
Right.
It's definitely something to worry about, I guess.
Well, here's something. I don't know if this is information that's out there. So if I accidentally start a rumor, I'm not trying to. But at RMAC, when everyone was gathering up before the event officially started, I think it was Aiden Hansen from Umarex. He had an Air Saber with a moderator on the end that looked like it might have been a prototype, and it kind of had like a whisker biscuit.
Okay, makes sense
on the front end. So, because I've been wondering, I'm like, man, these are so loud. Like, is there a way to have some sort of like suppression device on them? So it looks like someone's trying to figure that out.
Yeah, that would make a lot of sense. It'd be interesting to see how that impacts arrow flight. Obviously, whisker biscuits are commonly used on bows, so probably not that big of a deal. But yeah, no, that's if somebody could figure it out like that. I've said that before. If you could have a quiet arrow firing gun, that would be pretty boss. Because that would make you super lethal.
And kind of a hybrid, and something I wanted to try myself is some of those like what is that, the steam bow, or like the repeating like crossbow type of things. What are your thoughts on like those compared to arrow guns?
You're talking about like the AR6, the Stinger, which is a
that one,
and a pistol crossbow. Which is cool. We've actually, Keith Warren has taken a couple hogs with it at really close distances. Personally, I can't, like, I'm not that guy. It wouldn't be the thing for me. I mean, it's really meant for small, because you're talking about like 12 or 13 foot-pounds, I think, of energy. And they have these little like 6 or 8 inch bolts that have broadheads built onto them. I mean, I wouldn't want to get hit by one, I'd tell you that much. But not going very fast, and you'd have to be real precise with it to do it well. I actually sent one of those to Ed Gunlushy a while ago to see if he could try and skewer a squirrel or a chipmunk to a tree, and he's gotten really close, but hasn't quite come up with the goods yet there. But so like honestly, comparing the airgun firing stuff, or the arrow firing air guns, to crossbows is probably the most appropriate kind of dynamic there. And, now with a couple crossbows topping out over 500 feet per second, you're kind of in that same ballpark, although most crossbows are not shooting that fast, obviously. But even the ones that are shooting 300 to 400 feet per second are very commonplace now. So, we saw all sorts of crossbows at this point. And, it's been interesting to see that there's a lot of guys that I would put money on, if they could hunt in their state with an arrow firing air gun, or an air gun in general, they'd be taking that versus buying that crossbow. But the crossbow is the legal method of take in a lot of places, so it really limits your options. But they're also loud, and a lot of crossbows are quite loud, which is something I think that people maybe underrate, how loud some of these actually are. Like some of the ones that shoot that 450 plus feet per second, they slap. I mean, I don't mean that in the way the kids say it today. I mean, they're loud for sure.
So do you have a preferred method of hunting? Like, does your heart, is it partial to airgun hunting, or is it just dependent on circumstance, availability, legality and that kind of thing.
Yeah. Some of it's circumstantial, right? Like here in Ohio, air guns are not big bore air guns are not legal for like whitetail deer. So I don't have a choice. But I will always take a vertical bow over a crossbow, unless work is paying me to use the crossbow. Like unless I'm going somewhere for a purpose, I guess. But or if I'm in a spot where I know I'm going to be in closer, tighter spaces. I have a coworker that actually like kind of blew my mind on this. I'd never really thought about it. He's a bigger guy. He's a long draw length, like he's a 31-inch draw. So for him, there are certain trees where he gets into where, depending on what's around him, he can't draw his bow back all the way without hitting the tree. I've never had that problem. I'm not that big of a guy. Probably won't ever have that problem. But it made perfect sense when he was like, that's why I first picked up a crossbow, because I wanted to be in this tree because that was the deer I was after. And he was walking right by. I had him on camera and I needed to be there. So I bought a crossbow and he ended up getting this deer. But I like, if I had to pick, I'd much rather have the air gun in my hands for sure. So like the minute that gets legalized, whatever season they fold that into, I'll be out there with an air gun for sure. Speaking of Texas, heading down there, and I don't know when this is going to come out, so I don't want to like date it, but in middle of November, I'm going to be in Texas, actually doing some hunting with Ton Jones from Air Force. So, obviously using some air guns again. So that'll be exciting. I'm looking forward to that. But yeah, like air guns would be my preference. But when I'm not using an air gun, vertical bow is going to be what I'm going for. I like the challenge.
Right. And do you think that's why a lot of people like hunting with a bow, or do you think there's also maybe something kind of like primitive and like tapping into this somewhat like primal part of our being that's like, use a bow?
I think that certainly has a place, or that's a part of it, that kind of like primal, getting back to maybe the foundations of hunting more. Although I don't know if you could call a modern compound bow, anything like folks were using hundreds of years ago, of course. But for those guys that want to take that challenge to the next level, you have traditional bows and the recurves out there that you could do. So yeah, for me, I think it's just about, I like the proximity to the animal. And not in like a sadistic way, but it makes the whole experience more, it like hits you harder, you know what I mean? And not the rush per se, but I don't know what the word for it is. I didn't get a lot of sleep last night. That's probably not helping. But yeah, there's something about being in that same, like where you're almost eye to eye, or where you can, see exactly what that animal's doing with no magnification. There's something very, very primitive about that experience that I liked immediately when I first experienced it, and was like, man, I don't really ever see myself doing this any other way.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I think it's almost like what's the word? Like an intimacy almost.
Yes.
Like
yes.
The interaction, the level of interaction is so much different the closer you are. Like that's why it's cool to be like, it's completely different to see like deer off the side of the highway.
Yes.
In a field or on a farm or whatever, and then have like a deer walk 10 yards in front of you at like a cabin or something. Like it's just to be like frank, it's like seeing an attractive person 100 yards away or like 10 yards away, it's like
that's a good
I'd rather see my wife up closer than further away.
Sure.
So obviously not the same like
I get where you're going,
but there is something to interact in a more intimate way with the animal and see even things like prairie dogs, like watching it like eat grass and like pop up and like watch its tail wiggle back and forth really quick and like turn its head. It's so much cooler than like just watching them run around while you drive past a place on the highway. So
yeah, for sure. I should say, like, for me, I have deer in my backyard here in Ohio all the time, and some big deer. The thoughts crossed my mind before about like going up in a tree and taking one, right? Like, or,
Right.
well, I don't suppose I wouldn't even have to go up in a tree. I don't have that much property where it's like, it's probably going to run onto a neighbor's land or something or whatever. I don't want to deal with that part of it, but that's not hunting, right? Like this is in some instance, right? Like I separate in my head the experiences I've had like in a blind hunting with air guns and other things from what I'm doing in a tree stand. You know what I mean? Like it's just different. And especially when you take into account like being on it, like when you're hunting exotics, there's no season for these things. And you're like, okay, like there's a feeder somewhere. Like that is, in my opinion, is more of a demonstration of what in this case, an air gun is capable of than hunting and it's in the way it was intended, right? Don't get me wrong, the meat from that animal's in my freezer. I share it with my friends and family. Like I consume that. I have a high value for it, but the experience of taking that animal was not the same kind of hunting that my deer, my whitetail that I take in Southern Ohio are, right? It's a different experience. And I think that it's an important distinction. It's actually one I've had to kind of learn myself, because that, like, my first hunting experience outside of small game was in a blind with a camera, like I under a feeder. Like I didn't know this was not normal. Right. I guess for some folks it is normal. Right.
Yeah.
There are folks that only hunt that way. And I don't, if you had private property and, you needed to manage populations of game animals and that's how you do it, I got no problem with that. It's certainly, as long as whatever you're using to take them is ethical, I can't argue. But if I had my choice about it, I would much rather be no bait, no feeder, no nothing, just me, the animal in the woods, trying to figure out the best way to outsmart it to get what I need to get done.
Yeah, and I think it is an important distinction to make. Like, there's, you can't hunt every animal the same way. Like, I've never hunted like whitetail before, but like having hunted hogs, I'm like, dude, good luck hunting a hog without some sort of
food
bait or feeder or like food source that they're going to, whether that's your crops that they're running into or a feeder. Like, they are the most elusive creatures besides my 1-year-old that I have ever met. Like, they're so hard to like catch and spot, and like they're sharp, dude. Like I feel like pigs get a bad rap because it's like they're pigs. There's like this negative connotation to pigs, and like they're gross animals, they lay in the mud and they do this, and it's like, well, but they're freaking incredible animals. Like, they're unreal, dude. They're like the hardiest creatures ever.
Well, and they're super resilient. One thing that it's like a hot take, I guess, maybe, or like maybe hunting purists won't care for this. Like I look at hogs, pigs, whatever, like not pigs on a farm, but like feral pigs. They're a pest. Like I just personally distinguish between pest animals and like game animals, I guess. Like I would put predators into pests as well, right? Like those are things where in my head, I don't look at them the same way I look at a whitetail or like an exotic cervid species. You know what I mean? Like, there's just something in my brain that is different about that animal that says like, this needs to be rid from this land, either for population control or preserving crops or, vegetation or other species, right? Like it's the same way I view blasting chipmunks in my backyard, where I have to do it. Like when I moved into my house here, like my air conditioner unit sat level on the ground on this little pad, and now it sits like this on this pad because chipmunks, there's just tunnels under it, and it would probably have fallen over already if I didn't start smacking them. you know.
Right.
And so like, and look, I give chipmunks a more humane death than a lot of people do.
Oh,
You
for
know,
sure.
like you can't tell me a pellet to the dome is any less humane than anything. But you know, it's certainly better than people catching them in those traps and throwing them in a bucket of water. Like that's awful, in my opinion.
Yeah. I feel like there's an important distinction there to make too. Like, just because an animal is a pest doesn't mean it doesn't deserve the same like level of care and
Yes.
intention behind how you're getting rid of them. And they're
Yeah.
like hands down hunting animals, like whether it's with a bow and they die within, a few
Minutes.
minutes,
Yeah.
or it's with a firearm or an air gun and they're dying literally in seconds or instantaneously. Like there is not a more humane death than that. There's not in nature. It doesn't exist.
Yeah. Well, and
It's
that's
literally impossible.
yeah, and that's something people don't, I think a lot of non-hunters or anti-hunters don't realize is that no animal in the wild dies of old age.
Yeah, they don't just fall asleep in their bed and never wake up.
Right. That doesn't happen. Like it gets run down by coyotes or like deer, you know, bucks get into fights and kill each other, you know, from time to time. They get hit by cars. Like there's just not, yeah, there is no more humane death in I think in the real world than the one a hunter gives an animal, or attempts, I should say, to give an animal. And then the other part of that is like, to your point earlier, yes, I want to give as humane a death as possible to a pig as I do to a deer.
Mm-hmm.
I just am able to, in my mind, separate maybe how much I care about the animal or something, like, you know what I mean? There's some level of like going back to like that intimacy, right? Where I know this animal needs to be dealt with versus I am taking this animal for the express purpose of like continually feeding myself, my family, whatever. And not that I don't do that with some of those pest animals as well, but it's just a different thing in my head. And maybe I'm weird.
No. It's there for me too. I think it's almost like a delicacy. Like I'm going to be more delicate with hunting like a game animal.
Yeah.
And my understanding of like its importance in the ecosystem and like my approach than I am with like this hardy, impossible to kill, nearly impossible to manage, like brute of an animal.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean I'm going to like torture one of them versus the other, but there is just like a separation in your mind of like, this is like a delicate balance in the ecosystem. The government has tracked all this data, and I'm one of the people allowed to take one of these animals, and with something like a hog or an animal that's like causing serious damage and tons of other kinds of issues and like eradication of species, like in Australia with the feral cats, dude. I think
I just literally just telling me about this. Yeah,
they've literally, feral cats have caused the extinction of more species of animal than any other animal that we've ever known.
It's wild.
So, and there's this weird like reservation to like managing that problem, and the way you manage it is by getting rid of them, not by like relocating them,
right?
Because they're cats, you know. It's this weird reserve that people have, which I get to some degree. Like it's not, it's not like I have a desire to go and hunt cats. However, if the hunter in me and conservationist in me knows that an animal needs to be removed from a population or from an area, or the population of that animal specifically needs to drastically come down for the sake of an ecosystem and not eradicating other species from the face of the earth, sign me up, dude. Yeah. Show me where them cats are. So, and you guys can send me hate for that if you want, but it goes with any animal, like trophy hunters, stupid term in my opinion. But it's like if the animal needed to be removed for the sake of like the betterment of the herd dynamics,
right,
the ecosystem, all that jazz. But either way, hunting, it definitely feels like it's part of like our DNA. It's like it's in us to be like, I need to get that thing. And
Yeah.
I think even people who have who don't eat meat and who are like devout vegans and, you know,
Sure.
for whatever their reasons are, like if it came down to starving in a post-apocalyptic world,
Oh, you better eat that deer.
or freaking Book of Eli,
Yeah.
you know, crossbow and a hairless cat, dude. You better believe they're gonna freaking whop a cat before they
I would
starve
think
to
so.
death.
Yeah. I definitely think there's like, for me, the first time I went deer hunting was a very different experience than anything I had done up to that point. And it was like, I took a shot at a deer that I shouldn't have taken. No, I should rephrase that. I took a shot at a deer situationally that I shouldn't have taken. It wasn't too far for my capabilities. It was, I didn't know what I was doing well enough to take a shot at that distance. And so for me, it was like a 42-yard shot. And I didn't know, there's a reason people make a meh noise when they want to stop a deer, because they don't respond to whistling. And I found that out the hard way. I didn't know that. I figured if I went, you know, it would have stopped, and it like didn't even hear me. So I took a shot thinking I had stopped this deer as I'm looking through a peep sight through my sight housing, and I didn't stop. So I hit it further back than I had hoped, but I got lucky in that it jumped that string a little bit, and my arrow ended up hitting high in the back, and ended up cutting this thing's femoral artery, and it expired pretty quickly. Yeah. But again, I got lucky. Like
you should probably just lie and say that you meant to shoot it there.
Yeah. I meant to nearly spine the deer. Yeah.
Meant to aim for its femoral artery.
Yeah. Right.
You know the anatomy of a deer better than any human being.
I wish I was that good with a bow. But yeah, you know, it was one of those things where I was fortunate to be able to harvest that animal that night, like, and it expired quickly, because it would have been absolutely brutal on me if it hadn't. But I also took the approach of like, all right, I'm never letting this happen again. And I'm going to learn, you know, I'm going to like apply myself and be better with my bow, but also, you know, better with my hunting tactics. But that experience like just completely changed the way I look at like where your food comes from. What you eat out of an animal and what you don't eat, or why, you know, like, have you ever had a deer heart, you know, sandwich? So it's not bad. I get it. Some people might be like, wow, that's gag food, but you know, you cook anything up right.
Well, those people are idiots. Okay. Sorry. Maybe that's too much, but yeah, I've been eating almost like a carnivore diet for over a year. And so that's included a lot of organ meats. I'll go raw liver, dude. No joke. I will choose pancreas, cooked or raw, over eating chicken for the rest of my life.
Wow.
Chicken makes me so mad, dude. Why would you ever offer chicken if beef exists? You know what I mean?
Okay. I mean, I think it has its place. There's
you know certain... you can get the hell out of here if you think that, okay?
Because hang on a minute. Tay.
No, dude, I will literally come to Ohio right now.
Hang on. I'm going to challenge you on this.
I'm just kidding.
Okay. You like fettuccine Alfredo, all right, is not the same with beef or steak or whatever as it would be with chicken. Okay. You can't do that. There are certain things where chicken exists for a reason.
Get your Italian mindset out of here for just a second. Don't bring up freaking pasta, dude. Where's your gold chain? You wearing it?
What?
Are you wearing your gold chain?
Yeah, sure.
Guys, look how Italian he is. No, okay. Look,
I have literally no Italian blood. That's hilarious.
Dude, you're 100% Italian.
Oh, that's great.
But okay, I don't feel that strongly about chicken, and you're right, except I don't eat anything that has gluten. So fettuccine Alfredo,
I understand.
I haven't had that since freaking Vietnam. So, you're probably right. It does go better, but
you're a lot older than I remember you being like at your last birthday, apparently.
Yeah, dude. Honestly, I don't know how you had me so young.
Me either.
But yeah, chicken is stupid. Okay. Give me a burger. Give me beef. Give me bison. Give me elk. Give me venison. Give me a
Sure.
goose, dude. I'll eat a
Hot takes
freaking
with Tay. I like it.
a cooked goose. No, and I can make chicken taste great, dude. Like I'm good at cooking meat.
There's nothing we should clarify.
I'm
for
no
folks at
chef,
home.
but
Well, we should clarify. Like, there's nothing wrong with the chicken.
no, chicken's great.
Yeah,
I just my personal
you prefer
feelings
the
are
dark meats.
don't even talk about chicken if beef is a thing, okay? That's all I'm
Noted.
saying.
I will keep my mouth shut
You want a
about
spicy McChicken? How about I spicy McBust you up, dude? I don't want chicken.
No, well, all right. We're way off subject here, but
Right.
here's
So
the
we were
thing.
talking about
No.
eating
I
deer
gotta
hearts,
finish this.
but
Hang on.
Okay.
I do feel like when I go to a fast food joint, when I have to go to eat fast food, that it, like at a Wendy's, for example, I feel like the chicken is more real than the beef. I feel like that. I could be way wrong. That's just how I feel.
Well,
You know what I'm saying? You understand where I'm coming from with that one, I'm sure.
I feel
Not
like
from a use case perspective, like, because I'm sure you've not ate fast food in decades.
no, it hasn't been decades. It's probably been about 5 years though. I mean, it's just, well, it's like, Taco Bell was the go-to way back in the day. Then I found out like, oh man, you cannot handle gluten. And I won't go into detail with that, but Taco Bell's stuffing their meat full of gluten. So I'm like, frick, dude, I can't even get like a crunchy taco with beef or chicken.
I'm so sorry for you.
Well, it's honestly, dude, I literally eat steak probably at least three times a week.
I mean, that's awesome. I still feel bad
Like,
that you can't experience the splendor of a Taco Bell taco at 12 in the morning.
Well, when you have children, dude, the last thing you want is diarrhea. So
I get it.
It just cuts fast food out for the most part. But
fair enough. Anyway,
yeah, dude. So anyway, yeah, eating a deer heart sandwich. I've never had a deer heart sandwich. However, I did cook some hog. I cooked that hog heart, the hog that I shot, and I cut its heart up, dude, into little pieces, and I threw it on a hot cast iron with butter, like a maple syrup butter drizzle, and it was good.
All right, that's cool.
But yeah, dude, I'll freaking eat tons of organ meats. I don't even give a heck. Have you ever had like any of the other? Have you had like deer liver?
Once, yes. What was the other one? There's something else.
Pancreas, spleen, kidney.
Kidney. One time.
Kidney. I'm not a huge fan of kidney, but I'll eat it. And so on this note of eating organs, dude, I'll eat them raw. I don't give a frick. So far, nothing's ever happened. I eat raw eggs all the time. Been eating raw eggs for years and years. Granted, they're like cage-free, like pasture-raised eggs. They're not like bleached. They're like real chicken eggs. And the sources of meat I'm eating are like pasture-raised, grass-fed.
Sure.
Not fed any like GMO stuff, which I just am more conscientious about probably than most people.
Accurate.
But yeah, I get down on some organs like crazy, but I think kind of an introduction for people is like, if you can get that stuff into your food, like into like a ground beef. So you're like, here's a little bit of liver and kidney mixed into this ground beef or this sausage. It definitely is a way to like mask the taste a little bit, which we're just not used to. It's not necessarily that they taste bad.
Yes,
I just think it's so foreign to our modern world, like taste buds, and
preparation's everything with a lot of that stuff, where like heart is a little chewier meat wise than I would care for personally, right? Like it's not like a steak where it melts in your mouth, no matter how you cook it, in my experience. But if you cook it with like some onions or mushrooms or something like that, just to help kind of combine some textures, when you're eating it on a sandwich or whatever, you get like a nice onion roll. I know we're talking about gluten stuff. I'm sorry. but even if you ate it by itself, you cut it up. But if you had something else to accompany it with, rice or beans or whatever, like it's gonna bring it all together a little bit nicer than just like, okay, I'm gonna cook it and eat it, right? Like,
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's a good point to make, but it goes with anything. Like if you just take ground beef and just sear it, like it could be better, dude. Add some salt, some pepper,
a little butter.
Yeah. Some garlic cloves or garlic salt, dude. Get a little spunk in there.
I wish I had. Whoa. Okay. I don't know what you exactly meant by that just now, but whoa.
Probably not what you think I meant, dude. I was just saying add some flavor.
You should know my mind gutter immediately.
Well, I'm gonna be honest with you. That's a word I use interchangeably for both.
Stuff and things.
Some pep in your step and
and other things. Got it.
And TikTok Noted. Trends. So, Noted. But preparation for sure is key. And I feel like there just has to be like a willingness to. And for me, a lot of it is like a nutritional standpoint. Like,
sure,
meat and organs. I've been eating them since before it was cool. I just want to throw that out there. I'm not trying to sound like the guy that's like the OG hipster. Like, I was doing this before it was cool.
Since before Liver King was on steroids.
Dude, yeah. Dude, he's not even on steroids. He said it. PEDs.
Right. Nobody's
prioritize, ever lied before. Execute, dominate.
Nobody's ever lied before, ever.
But dude, even if that dude is on steroids, which is like, I would say it's likely. He's still killing it.
Yeah,
like,
sure. Looks great.
Take that out of his life. Take Good those beer. Away. Like he's doing it right.
Sure.
Either way, I'm just trying to be like positive and not just thrash people. I feel like the world's full of people who thrash other people.
A lot of negativity out.
I'll thrash chicken though, dude. Get out.
Yeah, see, like that's very pot calling the kettle black there, eh, bud?
Well, I don't really know what that means, to be honest with you.
Oh, it just means you're doing exactly what you're telling people not to do.
But a chicken is not a people, so, and you can quote me on that. But anyway, yeah, we just talked. I mean, the bioavailability of nutrients in meat versus plants.
Sure.
It's basically not even a competition. Like meat is, I think it's like 98 to 99% bioavailable nutrients. So you get a lot of bang for your buck. Plus, it's such an unappreciated, like the organ meats of animals, I feel like are so underappreciated in our culture. Like I've been telling people like, dude, you kill something or you have your cow butchered, like whatever, save me its freaking organs. Like I'll pay you for them, but save them for me.
There you go.
So anyway, a little bit of a rabbit trail there, but
yeah. It's all right.
I mean, look, dude, we're basically allowed to do whatever we want,
I know. This is the internet.
Yeah, dude, and it's it's free radio.
Exactly.
I remember
if you're still listening out there, sorry, but not really.
Yeah, sorry, but not really. Well, dude, I've had a lot of people be like, hey, please put out your podcast again. Please do another episode. I've gotten a lot of that over the last year, and I've been meaning to have more episodes come out, of course, but things have just been so busy, so crazy, like launching a new company, like getting all that stuff like built in to the point where it exists, and then you're like building it, children, like family stuff. We are getting ready to move, like, lots of different stuff. But I think the people, they like the podcast, I'm not going to say anything about any other podcasts out there. I've been on one. I don't know if the episode's been released, which is whatever. That's okay. But I've just had a lot of people, more than I would have thought, say, hey, been listening to these other podcasts and they're awesome, but I really want you to come out with some more content. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to get some more episodes going. And once I kind of get to a slightly more calmed down place, which if that says anything, about to move, 2 small children in the midst of a launch of a new company, that's the calmest place I've been in the past year.
It's good.
So
Hey, doing something right.
maybe
Doing
we'll
a few
see.
things right, I think, but that's okay. I'm biased.
That's because you're my dad, dude.
Exactly.
But yeah, so I think the people love it. That's what I'm getting at.
It's good.
And if you're not still listening, dude, and you don't know we're talking smack about you.
Exactly. Well, didn't we just talk about not doing that?
Yeah, we're not really. I mean, I don't think we've said anything
No.
smackish about anyone.
No, not terribly spicy. Although
But
we could, but yeah, probably better we don't.
we'll do that on a subscribers paid version of the podcast only.
That's good. I like that.
So that way, if you want to hear the wretchedness that's in our souls come out in a recording,
Tell me something, young
you
man.
gotta pay for it.
Tell me something real quick. What are you shooting? Are you shooting of late at all?
Yes, not much. I haven't been able to shoot a ton, and I've been working on that. That's actually one of the reasons why we're moving to Texas, is so I can shoot more.
Make the pews.
Yeah, but I've been shooting my compact Maverick,
Yeah.
the one that I had Rick from RMP Airguns cut the barrel down. So like the super compact, I think it's overall like 24 inches. The barrel's 10 inches. So I've been shooting that. I've gotten a few squirrels that have just been causing some trouble in the backyard, and it's been great, dude. I've been, practicing a little bit of shooting with my son, who's almost 4, and turn the power wheel way down so it's super quiet.
Sure.
It's a super slow moving pellet, and he loves it. I don't know how well he's doing with aiming right now.
That's okay. He'll figure it out later.
But we also have his little like Red Ryder BB gun, Red Ryder style. It's not actually Red Ryder. It's from Daisy Buckmaster or something like that.
Oh, okay. Like a Buck 105 or something.
Yeah, it's just a little lever action, like whatever. Been pouring salt down the barrel to shoot flies with, and making my own bug assault gun.
Okay.
Well, the gun's like $17, dude. It's like
I know. You could just buy a bug assault, but
dude, I'm strapped. Okay.
All right, fair enough.
I can't even drop 45 buckaroos on a bug assault, not to mention shipping, which is actually outrageous these days.
Buy some ballistic fuel. All right, help this guy out.
No. Yeah, you can if you want to. I'm actually drinking some ballistic fuel iced coffee with some collagen in it, believe it or not.
There you go.
Yeah. Oh, dude, do you do iced coffee? I know you do hot coffee.
I don't ice my own coffee because my fridge does not have an ice maker. I would if I could. What I do have, though, is I have one of these. I don't even know what it is. It's this little mug thing that you freeze ahead of time. You put water in it. It freezes like a shell, and then you can pour your coffee into it. And it's like within 30 seconds, it's freaking cold as the driven snow. So I use that from time to time, mostly in the summer. But as you know, we are, as I'm sure you are as well, descending into fall or almost winter, although it's like 65 degrees out today, which is unseasonably warm, which probably explains why I didn't see any deer last weekend. So thank you, Mother Nature, you dirty. Yeah. So yeah, but yeah, no, I'm more of a hot coffee guy for sure. But I do enjoy an iced coffee from time to time.
Well, I'm doing iced coffee. It's November 1st right now.
Yeah.
It was 70 degrees outside.
Wild.
In Colorado.
And people say global warming isn't a thing.
Yeah. I mean, that's a whole nother subject
that
we can get into on our paid version of the podcast.
It's a whole other subject that I know nothing about. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to go down that rabbit hole. I mean, I could give you my thoughts on it, but
let's not. Let's talk about air guns or something.
Sure, dude. So, who are you voting for? No, I'm just kidding.
There's an election? Holy cow.
Believe it or not, dude. Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, we covered some good topics. Big game hunting, some new guns that aren't technically out yet, some guns that are out. you got to mess around with the Javelin, the CO2 version
Yeah, sure.
before the obviously the PCP version. On a scale of 1 to 10, how much better is the PCP version than the CO2?
Like I would put the CO2 version at like a 6 and the PCP version is like a 9. For me. The downer, and I'm gonna catch flack for this. I understand the gun's like $300 and I don't really care. The trigger is rough. But it's doable. It's like, honestly, it's a hunting trigger on a crossbow. Like, it's not amazing by any stretch, but it's workable. But holy cow, man. Well, like, folks will see it when the review comes out. We shot a group at 45 yards, 3 arrows, the 3 arrows it comes with right out of the box. Okay. Threw a scope on it, sighted it in, and shot a 3-shot group that was like 1 inch at 45 yards. Like, I'm not going to take that thing deer hunting, but like, if I had a squirrel at 45 yards, I would go full send on that without question. And I would throw a tasty, delicious fixed blade broadhead and attempt to sever its connection to the mortal realm.
I really like how you worded that.
Yeah, I was going to go somewhere else, but I felt like where I was going to go was going to be too graphic. So
that's for the paid version. Please remember that.
Yes.
Well, what fixed blade do you use? I know, I mean, maybe you are sponsored. I don't know, but
no. Well, for that thing, the Interlock actually worked with Umarex to develop this broadhead called the Blood Bug, which was originally made for the CO2 version, but it's like a 50 grain broadhead, if I recall correctly. It works really well. The problem with the arrow for that gun is only 170 grains. It's not very heavy. So if you take out whatever the tip is, like 45 or 50 grains or something like that, and then you screw on a 100 grain broadhead onto that thing, it can be a little tricky to find the right, not only trajectory, but also get good consistent arrow flight out of that. So that's interesting. Something I have to play around with more from a testing perspective as well. But I have heard, and I won't disclose further, but I have heard there are other companies that are developing some lighter weight broadheads specifically for some of those, like the air javelins of the world. So that should be cool.
That is cool. I've always wanted to try some arrow guns and try out different broadheads, which, again, back to my buddy Chris, he is doing this right now. He's doing some testing for Umarex.
Sure.
And he's tried out a bunch of different broadheads, but this one, I've been seeing it for years, and it's the Annihilator broadhead. Have you seen anything on those? It's a fixed blade, but somehow, I don't know what they did, but they like figured out a way to decrease the drag of the arrow.
Okay.
And they do these videos on Instagram where they have people shoot them. They like people at like conventions and stuff. They'll shoot and keep track of how many times they puncture the trunk of a vehicle, like a metal trunk.
Sure. Yeah.
And it's in like the hundreds.
Oh, that is a wild looking broadhead.
Yeah, it's kind of cool and like super simple to sharpen. It's like the 3 blades fixed, and they have 2 versions, I think, like 100 grain and 150 or something like that. But the pictures I've seen of guys who have shot with them, it's like, dude, it blows a hole through the deer. So like the decreased drag. Anyway, I don't know if those would work very well. Obviously, fixed blades work better at slower speeds.
Typically
than higher speeds. Yes. General rule of thumb.
Well, but the flip side of that, the problem you have with mechanicals in some cases is that they will actually deploy upon firing, which is not, because most arrows are they're made to be shot from the back of the bolt, not right where the broadhead is. So that can be a little, and then you have no idea what happens to your shot.
Yes. When I was hunting the hogs in Texas, one night I went after a raccoon because there were just a bunch of raccoons, no hogs. So I shot, and what ended up happening was, and I think it was just because it was a previously used arrow, that it blew the broadhead off of the arrow. The broadhead went flying, which we didn't know. We're like, what the heck happened?
Oh, so like the
Broadhead
insert
went
came out.
flying,
Okay.
and then the arrow went like
Yeah,
15 yards,
wherever.
and we weren't able to tell that until the next morning. But I was like, dude, I know for a fact that was spot on. This raccoon was supposed to be
Yeah.
devastated, dude, and possibly the 3 or 4 behind it. But
Wasn't meant to be.
yeah, so that I've experienced the that side of things to a degree. But I mean, I just like there's so much out there still. Like there's so many options. There's so much innovation that's happening. It's such a cool time to be a part of the airgun industry and getting people into it and all that fun stuff.
I think I can say this. Air Force is coming out with a couple arrow guns as well, which they showed them at SHOT Show, but I don't know if a whole lot's been shown since. So hopefully that's something we're going to play around with while I'm down there.
Dude, when are you going to be out there? What days?
The 14th of November to the 16th or 17th, something like that.
Dude, I'm going to be out there in 1 week, and I'm out there for a week. So I come back home on the 15th. So there could possibly be some crossover. I don't know.
Maybe if you show up at Air Force Airguns, I might be there. I have no idea where we're going after that. Actually, I'm being taken to some place to hunt, and I don't know where that is, but that's okay.
Are you going to be blindfolded on the way there?
Maybe actually, they'll have to blindfold Matt, our camera guy, which will be more challenging. I don't think Matt would like being blindfolded very much in that kind of a setting. So I have to make sure Matt comes back in one piece.
Is there a certain setting he does enjoy being blindfolded?
I would imagine. Maybe.
All right. Well, thanks for listening to the Airgun podcast, guys. It's been a good conversation with my father. But dude, before we go, actually, what's new in your life? What's going on? Anything we can look forward to? Anything Pyramid Air related or not? Doesn't
Sure.
matter.
So let's see what's new. So we just launched our Cerakoting service. Right now it's for the Avenger, but obviously there's plans to apply it to a whole slew of other guns as well. Takes some time to do. So you can go on and customize your own Avenger now if you want to. Probably add the bullpup here pretty quick. But as far as like, I think, looking at some of the FX guns, Raw, Air Force, some of those higher end PCPs that folks want to, make their own. So definitely trying to do some more of that. We've also been doing kind of this marketplace initiative, which you can get ballistic fuel at pyramidair.com. So you should check that out if you're into taking better care of yourself. Which is cool. So there's a lot of new stuff, things that aren't necessarily airgun related, but like outdoors related or shooting related, that you can find on our website now that maybe you hadn't found before, or maybe you didn't think you needed or could buy at Pyramid Air. So, if you need a new knife or new crossbow stuff or arrows or whatever, there's a fair chance we have it. So give us a look. Or if you want swag from your favorite airgun brands like Predator, JSB, we've got some tasty swag there as well from some other brands also. So lots of cool stuff coming. We're partnering up with a bunch of companies that we've wanted to work with, but never really made business sense to work with, either because like we only did air guns or, there's just so many things that this opens up both for our customers and for us as a business, which is really cool. It means we get to work with some awesome folks, not unlike yourself, young man. So that is pretty sweet. When is this going to come out, Tay? Tell me right now.
Hopefully within a week.
All right.
If I can get everything edited.
All right. Well, I just won't add what I'd like to say, but there's going to be some new stuff coming out here before the end of the year for filling your air guns. That you'll see here pretty soon. All over the place.
Cream filling.
Sure. Hopefully not actually dry. Yeah. so that'll be awesome. And then obviously SHOT Show's right around the corner. So there's all sorts of tasty, delicious new products that'll be coming out. Although I am kind of curious to see, because, with the, not to take a negative look at the world here for a moment, but with the economy in the state that it's in, I am very curious to see, we've had a lot of guns that were like announced in 2022 that haven't actually hit the market yet. I got some notifications today that like Umarex is going to have some products shipping us before the end of the year that are pretty hotly anticipated, which is cool. But I know there's some other companies that weren't able to get everything to market this year that they wanted. So I'm kind of curious to see how much carryover we're going to see from a new product perspective in 2023 at SHOT Show, and then how many actual new products that we've not seen before are going to be hitting our eyeballs. So there's a lot of cool stuff. I should also tell the folks, if you've been following Scout air guns at all, pretty cool new kind of like EPCP thing going on over there. Those guys are out of Pennsylvania. We actually took a trip up there and got to see the gun, see their setup, their factory, and everything's pretty sweet. So we're looking forward to doing business with those guys as well, hopefully in the next month or two. But if it's early next year, that's cool as well. We want to support that new innovative PCP. So yeah, man, a lot of cool stuff going on, a lot of interesting development stuff that's happening behind the scenes. And yeah.
Heck yeah, dude. That's all we're looking for.
Yeah.
New stuff, man.
Trying to bring the people what they need. Maybe some things they don't know that they need yet. We'll see.
Hey, I am in the middle of that right now.
Yeah, I'm sure I get it. It's just like, look, I'm looking forward to the winter months because this is when I get to play with stuff. So for me, like the spring, summer, and early fall is all field target all the time for the most part. So now that the field target season is over, I get to like really sink my teeth into some stuff. So.
Well, that hellacious noise you just heard is that your stomach chair scooting across the floor above me.
Okay.
Which is the exact thing I told my wife. I'm like, look, my setup is literally directly below here. So
nobody can move.
If you can avoid scooting the chairs across the floor, which is probably one of my children.
Absolutely.
Then, oh, well, dude, that's what you get when you listen to me. Well, Tyler, thanks so much for coming on, dude. It's always awesome to have you. And you're always just such a pleasant guest. And I know you don't believe you're Italian, but everyone knows that you're literally 100% Italian. So thanks for doing what you do. And let's do more of these, and let's have a hunt sometime. And maybe I'll see you in Texas in a couple weeks. Who knows?
Could be fun, man. But all of that sounds good. And I appreciate you being such a gracious host. And also, I'm glad you are back and getting back to the podcast.
Yeah, dude, me too. So hopefully all this audio has recorded. If it hasn't, I'm so sorry.
We'll do it again tomorrow. No big deal.
Perfect. All right, man. Well, I'll sign you off here and I'll end this recording.